once they sit down and they know they're safe, then they get a chance to start crying. Do whatever I can to collect money to for playgrounds. It's definitely not sustainable. It's not easy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the podcast in partnership with Arabian Business, Smartcast, and Najahi Events. Today's guest, I met him a few weeks ago in Rwanda, where he organized a trip for us to go and build a playground in an orphanage. He's the founder of The Power of Play, an organization that has now built over 34 playgrounds in refugee camps and orphanages around the world. He's an ex-extreme sport athlete that had a near-death experience which changed the direction of his life. Reza from The Power of Play is our guest next. Let's cue the music. By 2050, we're not going to have enough food on the planet to feed the population as it grows. So we have to think of new technologies that will solve that problem. And smart cars are at the forefront of that revolution and have developed phenomenal facilities and technologies to be able to grow food by using 95% less water, solar power, wind power, no pesticides, no GMO, just really good, wholesome products. And while I was in Holland last week, I tasted their tomatoes. Oh my God, they were amazing. So please go check out Smartcast Tech. So SmartKastech on Instagram. Learn about their story and listen to what David, the CEO, is up to, because genuinely it's a phenomenal business. Now, partnering with Arabian Business means we're partnering with the biggest news publication here in the Middle East. If you want business news, this is the place to go. And they've done a deal for you guys to give you a 25% discount off subscriptions. All you've got to do is go to the code ABEXEC. So that's your discount code ABEXEC, and you'll get a 25% discount on subscription. Trust me, it is the best place to go for business information in this region. Najahi Events sponsored my podcast from the very beginning. They've been supporting me now for nearly 3 years. I have a beautiful relationship with the founder, Alpha, and she really believes in what we do. And I can't thank Najahi enough. So go check out Najahi Events on Instagram. You'll see them there. They bring motivational, inspirational leaders and speakers into the region so that we can be inspired and we can learn. They're at the forefront of teaching people how to use blockchain and cryptocurrency. So you'll find lots of their technology and specialists over there teaching what we need to learn. So go check them out at Najahi Events, Najahi Events. So Reza, thanks for coming to join us on the show. And I feel like this podcast is going to be about a great trip we had to Rwanda together, but I want it to be so much more than that. So for the benefit of all of the listeners and the viewers today, give us a quick pitch on who you are, what you do, and how on earth you got into doing what you do today.
All right. First of all, it's an honor to be here with you, Spencer. And that was a lovely week to spend together in Rwanda. Um, to make it short, I was born in Iran, in Persia, and first 6 years of my life was during Iran and Iraq war. So I was born and raised through that time, and raising up during war, it has this is a chaos. It's a lot of darkness. I remember as a kid, the our city used to get bombed, and usually the bomber plane would come at nighttime, and we used to all go and hide in a bunker with my cousins and aunts and uncles. I remember they would tape up the windows in case they shattered. Some of them would hide under the table, um, and it had this darkness. But I remember for me, as soon as everything would go dark, it was time for me and my cousins to play hide and seek and play other games. So we had our playtime during the war. Um, and I grew up in Iran until I was 19 when I moved to Canada. I know somehow as I was growing up, always played and always looked for adventure on trail, and I got into lots of extreme sport. To be frank, I was an adrenaline junkie. I needed that rush.
Give me an idea of some of those. What were those extreme sports?
Like speed flying, ice climbing, snowmobiling, free climbing.
What?
Uh,
Hold on. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I don't. I'm not having that. You're talking about things in a way like that's an everyday thing. What's speed flying?
so speed flying is, oh man, it's lots of fun. You have this wing that is similar to paraglide, but it's a lot smaller. So you coming down really fast. And usually, I did it with the ski. So I wear my skis. I have the wing above me. I ski down the mountain. I get to the cliff, fly off, then land again, do a little bit of skiing, and fly again. So that's how it was in winter, summertime, off a cliff or something. Just jump off with a wing and go through the canyons and whatnot and just come down.
And was this like a hobby? Did you compete professionally? I mean, what kind of stuff? What level did you get to?
For speed flying, no, I didn't compete, but I used to be an instructor for mountaineering, ice climbing, rock climbing, scuba diving. So a lot of sport, I really, really got into it. Speed flying, it was a short career. I didn't get to really carry it too long before I started having some accidents.
Oh, really? Did you? Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so speed flying, I got into it, and one time I was doing a fly from a rock, and I saw the wind is coming. You need a wind, like a headwind, to fly. I see the wind is coming, so I start running, and I got to the end of the rock. As I jump off, I could just see the wing is not doing what it's supposed to, but I was all the way down, like just gotta give it all. So last step off the rock, and like, oh no, I am coming down really fast, and I was going in a circle, going down, like, and I just noticed there's something wrong with my wing, and just went with it and start coming close, and I hit the first tree with my leg, and I came to the second tree. I grabbed on the tree. It was just the very top of this tall pine tree. As I grabbed it, there was no more wind, so the wing collapsed and came down. So I got heavy, and the tree snapped, and I fell all the way down. And I tumbled between the branches, and I hit the ground, and I hear this beep sound. Everything went dark. Then things start getting white and comfortable and fuzzy. Um, and I was getting really drawn into it, but I could hear my friends calling my name, Reza, Reza, and I just knew I have to respond to that name, to my name. So I opened my eyes. I saw my friends are above me, just looking at me. Um, and I walked away from this fall just with a concussion and few bruises. Um, and this was the wake up call for me.
How many years had you been this kind of adrenaline junkie? Had it been like, in your teenage years all the way through to adulthood?
Yeah, yeah. I started rock climbing when I was 12 years old. Then when I came to Canada, I really got into more pushing it, until I was how old was I? 34. Yeah, 34 when this last accident happened.
You were a bit of a lunatic, really, weren't you? You're one of these yeah, you're going to live forever. You got 9 lives, but you'll have 90 lives, and it doesn't matter. You're just going to go for it because you got addicted to the adrenaline rush that came with it. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. You're not the first to call me lunatic at that time. They used to call me this. They would say, "You're making the cats embarrassed. They have nine. You got more lives than that." Some friends they were saying, "Your angel, whoever is looking after you, is working overtime."
But did you apart from that incident when you got concussed, had you been in many accidents along the way, or just one or two
Yeah,
lighter
yeah.
ones?
A few. It was a time I was snowmobiling. I fell off the cliff, landed on my head, broke my neck. There's the other time I fell into a crevasse, broke 7 ribs in my neck. Again, got a whiplash and broke my collarbone. There's been a few. I fell into a tree well, almost suffocated. Um, there's been one or two or more.
Goodness me. So you really have like gone for it, haven't you? Really extreme. I didn't imagine that. When I knew you'd had an accident, because you kind of mentioned it when we were chatting in Rwanda. But so was that fall when you hit the tree then? Was that you just saying to yourself one day, okay, I think I've pushed my luck too much and it's time to stop?
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. It was like for myself and friends that they were there, nobody could comprehend like how am I just walking away like. After a few minutes, standing up and I start literally walking away. Um, and as I was trying to just cope with this and understand it, few days later, a friend of mine who got me into this sport, and he was the legend of speed flying. He had a similar accident. He jumped off. He had a malfunction, but he didn't make it. He passed away, and things just got that much harder and darker for me. That how is Kyle not here? And I walked away. And just over a week later, Kyle's daughter was born, and
Wow.
I was thinking, what am I doing here? I had this thought that I took his spot. Kyle is not here for his daughter, and once again, life is giving me the opportunity. And that's where I started like really questioning it. Like, is there a purpose? Is there a calling for me? Like, or is it just for me to have more fun and giggles? Like, and that's where I went on a quest to find my calling and see who am I? What am I doing?
So, tell me about that quest you went on. What did that look like?
So I wanted to be away from everyone, and so to minimize all the voices, so I can really hear my own voice, my like own inner calling. So I choose Amazon Forest, um, which is not a quiet place at all. Amazon is loud and it gets scary, especially at nighttime. I find out about these howling monkeys after a few days. Like first couple of days, I was petrified. Um, so during those few weeks that I was tracking in Amazon forest, uh, it was very phenomenal and profound experience. And I really got present to the time when I was a kid and I was born in Iran. During the war and during the darkness, play was my light. Play was my escape. My freedom. And I was like, this is the light that I had, and got me through what I had to go through, and I want to pass it on. And I really got that I am here for the kids. Like kids are the future, and is nothing is more meaningful to be there for these little innocent humans that they.
Yeah, but you're not a hold on. This doesn't make any sense to me. You were you weren't a dad. You'd lent into some time when you were a youngster in the war, and you played yourself, and that kept you busy. But I'm struggling to understand how they got connected. How you went from this extreme sports athlete to then saying, "Holy macaroni, this is crazy! I've got to stop doing this." I love the fact that you then explained that you needed to hear your own voice in your head. I think that's really important. I've not heard anyone describe it like that. Get away from the voices so I can really hear myself. Um, I can understand going on an adventure to the Amazon jungle. I've been there myself. It's a bit of a crazy place, and I wouldn't like sleeping there unless it was in a hotel. Um, how did you connect to children? What happened?
um well, after the accident and Kyle passing away, I start carrying this guilt, that I took his spot. What would Kyle's daughter live right now if he had a dad? And when I was there, I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking about my own childhood, and got like all these glimpses and visions of my childhood, and remembering like things getting dark, and I feeling alive, like playing, running around, and
Hmm.
that wasn't where everything clicked. Um, as I was living in Amazon, I came out. I was in Peru, then I went to Bolivia, and I still wanted to find this silence to like really get to to discover more. And as I was in La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, is a really crowded place, and like I need to escape. Um, and then first day I arrived there, and I see so many kids. They live in their own little community, and they live in the street. From a young age, like 4 or 5 years old, they live together. They beg and they try to make it and to live. And I got curious to know what is it like to be a kid living in the street. So I spent a week with those kids. Every day I'll just get up, get like bread and some food, give it to them, and just sit back and just watch them. And as I was watching them, it's like I saw something is missing. Something about these kids are not right. They look like an adult in a small size. No, they're just waking up and trying to make it. Just trying to bring some food, eat, and just make it to the night and sleep, not to be robbed, wake up next morning. And it just dawned on me, for a kid to be kid, they need to play. And that's where all the things just linked together and made sense.
So you sat there thinking these kids need to play. So what did you then do immediately after spending that week with those kids? What was the next thing you did?
Yeah, right away I got a fly, came back to Canada. At that time, I was a builder. I used to build luxury homes in Vancouver and Squamish. I sold everything that I could liquefy to cash, including my business and homes and cars and whatnot. And started the power of play. And in a few weeks, left Canada, started traveling and building playgrounds.
That's just nuts. It's honesty. I mean, I've spent time with you, Reza. That's just nuts. How you sat there and watched these kids not being able to play and begging on the streets. You've identified that they're not playing and they need to play, and then you say to yourself, "You know what? I'm going to build playgrounds just like that."
Just like that. Yeah, it's I chose the responsibility of being the person to create a space for the kids to be kids. And I have yet to just think about like what could I do better than that with my life. I'm so grateful for everything that had happened to bring me to where I am today.
So, it blows my mind that there's people like you that exist on this planet. Number one, adrenaline junkies that are as mad as you, but also people that have this ability to identify. And then, a lot of people want to find their calling, they want to find their purpose, they want to find, the right career that's going to make them happy, etc. But what you did is so far removed from anything I would have even imagined, let alone done, that I find it really, really, really inspiring to see you did that. So take me practically, because it's quite an emotional journey here, but I want everyone to understand practically what you did. So, where was the first playground you built? Did you do it through setting up a non-profit? Did you ask some friends to give you some cash? Did you just pay for it yourself? What happened?
So it was one of those things, when the idea came, I knew I'm going and that's it, nothing gonna stop me. So I came back to Canada. As I was selling the stuff, I talked to a couple of friends and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And they said, oh, maybe you should work with some other NGOs and start learning and then eventually do your thing. So I did some research. I couldn't really find that many organizations that they do what I wanted to do, to build playgrounds. So I
Mhm.
started the power of play, and I started talking to people like, "Hey, where should I go?" And somebody said you should go to Uganda, and kids get treated really bad, especially children with Down syndrome or autism. Sometimes they've been considered as cursed and like they've been treated really poorly. And I said, Uganda it is. So I flew into Uganda.
Hold on. Who said that?
A friend was just chatting and somebody told me go to Uganda. I'm like, all right, I'll go to Uganda.
You just went, I'm going to go to Uganda. It was as simple as that.
Simple as that. I just had to start.
And you'd never been to Uganda. You didn't know what it was like. You didn't know what you were going to do when you got there. You just went, I'm going to go and look.
Yeah, yeah. So just before going there, I found an orphanage. I was like, okay, I'll go to this orphanage and stay with them and build a playground. I got
Mhm.
to that orphanage, and it's really unfortunate that there's quite a few orphanages in some of the countries that they're just a business. There's a lot of kids that are orphans. They bring them in and they just collect money, and kids are just suffering there. So it didn't take a while to recognize that, and I just start asking around in Uganda, like, I need to build a playground. If anybody knows where I should go, and somebody told me in north of Uganda, which is just south of South Sudan, is one of the world's biggest refugee camp. And this camp, some days they get 3 to 5,000 refugees coming in. So there is shortage of everything. And it's like, all right, I'll go there. And so I started just asking around a bit, and somebody says to go to refugee camp, you need to be part of the United Nations or the government, or need to have a permit. So looking for a permit, it wasn't easy. Long story short, I got smuggled into the refugee camp. Um, and when I got there, it was, it just shook my world to see like this exists.
Describe what it looked like.
Ah, it's embarrassing for us human, that there are people living like the way they do. So I start driving and like it's nothing. It's just like every now and then see some shrubs and a couple of trees, and we just drive all the way to this desert, the area called Ajamani, and it's called Ajamani Refugee Camp. Um, and then once we start getting to the camp, as far as you could see, you just see small pieces of tarps. Some of them had UN logo, some of them nothing, and there are families and people living under those. And I spent some days there, and all they do is just sit under the tarps until there's a time that they hand out food or something. They all line up, get their food, and go hide down there. And their food is they give them a millet, it's like a flour. Um, they give them 30 kilo of that a month, and that's all they get. They have some salt, and they eat millet every day of the year. And some of them they've been living there for 2 years, 3 years. Like some faces they even start having deformity from the malnutrition. Um, the heat, and I remember I was there and I saw everybody started like running around, all the workers and the soldiers, and they say, "Oh, people they're gonna come." They just heard there was a attack because Sudan and South Sudan they've been having the civil war for 70 years. So the people they're gonna come, they're gonna flee right now. And as would people would come, the way that the attacks happen there, they usually the rebel or soldiers will attack a village. They kill the men. A lot of times by chopping their limbs off. They rape the women. They kill them. They take the girls as for human trafficking and take the boys as child soldier. And those that they get to escape and flee, they run. They get to the camp. A lot of them are bleeding. And once they sit down and they know they're safe, then they get a chance to start crying. Before that was just escaping. And yeah, it was, I was grateful to be there so I can do something, the little, very little that I can do. And that's where we said we'll build a playground. And refugee camp is a government land, so there's a lot of loopholes we had to go through, but we got lucky to find an orphanage within just on the side of the camp that they had their own land, and they really loved the idea, so we ended up building a playground there, which wasn't easy, but it was so profound, so rewarding and humbling to do that.
And that was your first playground.
That was the first playground, yes.
And you sat there, you've been really moved by this environment. You've then decided to take some action. What kind of playground did you build?
So all of the playgrounds we are building are sustainable. We upcycle things like tires and whatever we can. That very first playground was by far the most challenging playground we have built. This camp, as I told you, had like some days 3 or 5,000 people coming. So you can imagine there's a shortage of everything. Even for tires, I had to just drive around to all these villages to try to find tires. We wanted to build them a little fort, like a cubby house. To find timbers for that, we had to go to a village that they had few trees. Talk to the elder to allow us to drop a tree. Got an axe, drop the tree, process the tree with the axe. We had no tools, or we went all around to few villages until we found a drill. They say, "Oh, this guy has a drill. You can get a drill from him." And we got one of those hand drill, the one you twist them. um, and once we got everything together, which took almost a month to just find enough material, and again overnight we put things in a truck, just had to like secretly go there and when there unload this stuff, and now kids are just so happy and ecstatic and seeing all these like colorful things are coming off the truck, and they knew it's gonna be their playground. We got the shovels and pickaxe and, stoked, rolled our sleeves up, went through the ground, start digging. We went about 5 inch deep and we hit the rock. So the whole land was sitting on this big river rock. I was like, oh shoot, what are we gonna do now? So we start talking to some other NGOs if they would lend us their equipment for digging for water well. Nobody wanted to do that, and so it's like, okay, we'll go with hand. We got these thick metal rods, and I start digging with just rod going straight down, and that place is 45, 47 degrees centigrade. It's hot, so these rods are just like cooking. Our hands start getting blister. And I remember I was with my partner at the time. I dig, went for a couple of hours, and I was just exhausted. Just barely made like a couple of inches through the rock. I dropped the tools. The rest of the laborers, they dropped their tools. We all sat back, and I was just felt defeated. I came all the way there, all this hope. Now I can't even go through a rock. And then I saw the children from the orphanage that they were watching us. They got up, they grabbed the tools, and they start digging. And my partner said, "Oh, should we get the tools from them?" I said, "Don't worry, they're gonna get tired in 2 minutes and they drop it." And then I watched them, they're going and not stopping. And they went for like 40 minutes. And I got one of the guys there that could translate for me. And I came to this kids and I said, please ask them to drop the tools, they're gonna hurt themselves. And as I got there, I saw a couple of these kids holding this hot metal rod. Their hand had blister had popped, they had blood in their hand, and they were still digging. And so he translated and asked him, like, please drop the tools. And they said, no, this is our playground, and we want the playground. And I was like, you will get a playground. And yeah, that was the testament, just to see that and like how much these kids they know what's coming and how much they want it. And once it was built, I don't know. What I love to do when I build a playground just to sit back and watch the kids playing and see that joy and laugh and scream. And this guy came that he was working in the orphanage and it's like, I don't know what you guys do, but with these playgrounds. And he pointed at one of the guys, Diego. He says, this kid, he lost his family in a genocide. And he's been with us for 2 years. He barely talks. He doesn't interact with any kids. And look at him. He was just running around like a maniac, screaming and laughing and talking and pushing and pulling. And that was the moments like this thing works, and I believe in what I do, and I'm just humbled and honored for these things show up in my life.
Lots of people out there chase money and they believe that money makes you happy and that they've got to have a successful career and pay the mortgage off and get their money in their 401k or their RSP or their retirement account, whichever it may be. Um, what kind of role does money play in your world?
hmm so I've been doing this for 5 years, and I'm still doing it voluntarily. So making a living has always been a struggle. I come back when the money runs out. I come to Canada and I do whatever I can to make a living and also collect money to for playgrounds. It's definitely not sustainable and it's not easy. But at the end of the day, I am so fulfilled and content that I don't want it any other way around. The way I look at it is all we have in life is time, right? We put the time to work. So we convert the time to work. So the work get converted to money, and then we convert the money to things that we buy so that we can get that happiness. And we don't. No, we don't get happiness from things. And I think I got a shortcut. I'm just using my time for the happiness.
That's a really nice way of putting it, actually. A lot of people don't don't understand because they've never had an experience that's been moving in the way that your experience was. I think that's important to remember. I think that a lot of the time people are never exposed to that. Um, I fortunately have been exposed to kind of stuff like this along the way and was very fortunate to be with you in Rwanda just a few weeks ago. For the benefit of everyone listening, how many playgrounds have you now built and in how many different countries
Hmm. We have so far built 34 playgrounds in 11 countries.
in the last 5 years?
In last 5 years, yes, yes.
So you're doing one every 2 months?
Yeah, well, see, it's like first year I went really strong, but I burned out. I spent everything I had. As I told you, I sold everything I had, started traveling and building, and I came back to Canada with $400 left in my account. So I had to spend a year and a half, almost 2 years, just to get back on my feet, to start collecting enough money, and it being exposed and seeing the suffering, especially suffering of the children, um, it's not easy. And I'm just learning to be there and witness it and not take it on now. And for first almost 4 years, it was mainly 3.5 years was one man show, and
Hmm.
now we have a powerful team. We have a big group of volunteers all over the world, um, and now we are really on action and getting a lot done.
How much does the playground cost? About 15, $20,000. So how does it go then? So teach me the mechanics. You the first, somebody said to you go to Sudan, so you went there without much planning and much thought. But how do you find a project to work on? How do you find a playground to build? What's the actual practical process? Because I'm sure there must be lots of bureaucracy there. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So we basically look at the stuff that is going on around the world, right? And we always partner up with a local NGO, orphanage, refugee camp, or low-income school. Even somewhere so we don't have to go and buy the land, we build it in the land for them, and somewhere that there is already 500 or more children. And we choose a country that is going through a lot, like for example Rwanda. You were there and you know about the genocide that happened not long ago, and still there's so much trauma, and big part of play is a trauma relief. That's how kids they deal with trauma. And when we go to a country, we choose a place that we can build 3 to 4 playgrounds at the same time,
Hmm.
and with that I can train a team, so when I leave the country they can continue and work in their country. um, as of actually this quarter, as of April 1st, now we have a new thing that they apply for our playground grant, which is us going and look around. So it's a lot easier because we are getting to know in a few of these countries. So they apply, and then we can go through the process and vetting process and choose the location to build a playground.
And do you get much pushback in different countries, or is it typically very welcoming?
It is very welcoming. You know, um, we go to some places that people are really suffering. And first thing they ask, like, oh, why don't you give us money, why don't you give us food, why don't you build us home? um, it takes a conversation to tell them why we do what we do. Play is for mental health of children. It's a food for their soul. And this is the same thing they say, instead of giving a fish, teach them how to fish. That's empowering the children to deal with what's there for them to deal with. And the happiness of the kids, like, play brings joy to children, and that is so contagious and brings joy to their community. And these very same people that first they ask us, give us money and whatnot, and they are suffering. A lot of them are hungry parents. They all come and they volunteer and they work because they know what's coming for their kids. And all of our project are community collaboration, from the beginning to the end. It's for them. We don't want to go there with this notion that we know what they need. We go and say, this is what we do, how can we cater it for you? and we get the children to design their own playground. Every playground is different, is designed by the local kids, and then we get the parents to come and collaborate and work with us. The reason we do that, is like, these kids, they really need to know that they matter, their voice can be heard. Some of these places we go, people are thinking really linear and narrow. I ask somebody, um, hey, what do you do? And says, I'm a farmer. Like, why are you a farmer? Says, because my dad was a farmer and his dad was a farmer. And we want them to know your opinion, your idea matters. You are unique, and giving them opportunity to design their own playground is really empowering. Um, Once these playgrounds are built, all these little kids, they walk so proud, around the playgrounds, and they tell to their friends like, "Oh, I designed this. This is how you're gonna play with it." It's just see it right there. And for the parents, as they volunteer and they help, see, the playgrounds is so powerful, Spencer. Like, the day is done, like, kids are different, and we want the parents to pat themselves on the shoulder, like, we did this for our kids, feel empowered. Not that they say, oh, this foreigner came, did it, and walk away. Just we want them to know this is what they did and they can do that. And like, our playground are upcycled, it's like from nothing you can build something like this. And they can just, give them this mindset, like, you don't have resources and it's unfortunate, but you can do with what you got. Um,
You said to me about it's something really really important when we were together. You said when children are playing, they're not thirsty, they're not hungry because they're playing. They're not tired because they're playing. Because when they're playing, they're happy. No matter what's going on, whatever they need, it doesn't matter. They're playing, and that really stuck with me when you said that. But also really resonated with me is the impact of that playground to a community, and how risks are reduced. Where are the kids, what are they up to when there is no playground? Can you just talk about that for a minute?
For sure, yeah. So the first part you said, I talk off my own experience. I remember when I finished school as a kid, I would come home just like without my parents see. I would just drop my backpack and there I go. I'm out in the street and climbing trees and playing with my friends, and until it's dark. And my parents, they every night they had to come and drag me back home. I was like, hey, you haven't had lunch, you haven't had dinner, it's cold outside, it's raining, you have all these cuts and bruises, and I didn't even notice any of them. Play was the only time that so many of us, you forget about, like, oh, I need to eat lunch, I need to, maybe it's cold outside. It's so captivating and so powerful, and there's nothing else in life that like really drag us this much into it, and we forgot about everything else. And about what you said about the communities and the risk, see, a lot of these places we build, um, children, the way they escape from hunger and from the misery, and their way of escaping is by getting into drugs. um, and their drugs are just literally kills their brain. Like, a big thing they do is, one is sniffing glue. The glue is very cheap. They buy the glue, put in a bottle, and they just put in their nose and just sniff it until they drop. Or they put a styrofoam in the fire and makes this black smoke and just like smell that until they drop. And every time we build a playground, like, a couple of the biggest testimonial we hear from the parents is that, one is, now instead of our kids they do drugs, they are in a playground playing, they are together. As if when we are worried and we need to find our kids, we know where they are, they're in the playgrounds. It's just, they say, instead of now being against each other, they are together with each other. um, and it's literally is building communities, become this place of gathering. And playground is not about that slide or swing or tires. It's about the space. We are creating that space of play. Like, in the home, you have kitchen is a place to cook, you have the bathroom is a place for other stuff, and now in the community there's a space to play. And that's what it is. Families come together, they get feed off their kids happiness. I see so many times the parents just sit back and watch their kids laughing, and they get joy. They get the giggle from them.
You called your organization The Power of Play. What's your big ambition? What's your goal? You've done 34, did you say now?
Yeah.
What's the dream?
All right. Well, the dream is to work ourselves out of job. I'm really looking forward for a day that we can close the power of play once every kid around the world has the opportunity to be kid. um, then that's what you're working towards. It's and every kids deserve it. These innocent little things are born to the world and dealing with the crap that us adults left behind. And
Hmm.
see, there's so much happens through play. That's why we call it the power of play. During play is when kids they get to connect with each other, socialize. That's where they learn how to social and connect with other kids. They learn their boundaries. They learn, okay, I need to stay in the lineup. They learn to take risk, you know and they deal with lots of things that is there for them to deal with. For me, when during the war, every time I was playing, a lot of times we turned to a plane, and chase our friends, and that was our way of coping with what is happening. you know um and so many of the kids we work for, are focused on the kids that are in low income family. That kid is supposed to bring bread to the table. Kids that are they used to be child soldier. They've seen and done things that us as an adult can't even comprehend. Some kids they've been survived from human trafficking, child labors, and there's so much for these kids to deal with. And it's amazing how through play they get to regulate their emotion and deal with this stuff. For example, anger is an expression. It's a way human express themselves, and play is the ultimate way to express. So kids they get so many things out of their system, and that's the way I believe to make our world a better place. You know, like these kids now they're becoming empowered, they're becoming connected. They've been research in actually a prison in Texas, and they got 26 convicted murder, and they went back and recreated their life just to understand how somebody can be, cold-blooded murder. And as
Yeah.
they did this, what they discovered was in every 26 of them, they lacked play as a child in their childhood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, I'll send you the research. It's really interesting. Because as you're playing, you like bullying or you push somebody and falls and cries, and that's how you start creating compassion by feeling somebody's sadness. But if you haven't had this opportunity, you don't have this compassion. Compassion doesn't, it's not you born with it. A lot of these emotional and social things that we have as an adult, it happens during play. Play used to be the biggest part of our life, as any mammals, you look at them, like the cats and lions and stuff, they're always playing. They're all getting ready as an adult. They're creating how to bond, how to be together, and play is becoming less and less. And it's not just for all countries that we work in. Even here, most of them now play is watching TV or behind a computer game, or we call football or soccer play, where you have a role and you have to score, and if you win you're good, if you lose you suck.
You're shit. Yeah.
Shit. Yeah. So yeah, that's why we play by definition is voluntary work with nowhere to reach, just out there, no goal, and just self-directed. That's what play is.
You're a bit of a modern day Pied Piper, aren't you? You're just playing your flute and the kids are all coming out to play. It's like you're one of life's good people, and you've been able to lean into your experience of growing up in a war and understand that. What When you look at the world and society as a whole, considering what you're doing, do you have compassion for the fact that people have got their heads down and their tails up and are getting on with their lives, or do you get frustrated that there's so much abundance out there that could be used in better ways?
It's a great question. I'm a bit challenged with that. And I am keep trying to create compassion and love for everyone, and I think I do have it for a way up to a certain point. But when I sometimes go and spend half a year in some of these countries, and I see how people they live with nothing, and they still are so generous and so loving, and then I come back here and I see we have so much, we waste so much, and we are so entitled, and we are so angry, and we are so stingy. Sometimes like all I wish for, a lot of us is to have the opportunity to go to these places, to be in service of other people, so we don't take all the resources we have for granted. And in war, there is enough of everything. The only problem is the balance is not there. In one part of the world, we have so much, which makes the other side of the world so little. When you were in Rwanda, remember you guys brought the lollipop and all the kids they went bananas to get this lollipop. Um, and I just watched this, three or four tiny kids. I think they were like 4 years old. They got the lollipop, they start eating it, and they start like running back, and I just sat there and started like waving at them. And they came to me, they pulled the lollipop out of their mouth and they wanted to give it to me. And I was like, you got a lollipop, it's a jackpot. And these kids are so generous. And I told them, like, I grew up, I always had a lollipop in my pocket, I never shared it. And you guys got your first lollipop, and you just want to share it with someone. And see, that's where the joy is. Like, the real joy is in giving. I remember the time I was in South Sudan. I was in the Gorom refugee camp, and this place is hot and hostile, and there's nothing to buy around there. So we usually take a little bit of water and food with us. I remember it was one of those hot days in the afternoon. We're just digging and stuff. And all of a sudden, I see this lady is coming with a tray on her head that she was carrying, and there was chopped watermelon. Like, oh my god, that's a jackpot! So I called this lady to come in here. I bought all the watermelon she had, and I gave it to all the workers and the team, and I kept one for myself. And I sat back under this tree, like, oh my god, this is gonna be the best. As I was just about to have the first bite, I just saw in the corner of my eyes these two little kids. So I looked like these two kids, maybe 3 or 4 years old, just like looking at me, looking at the watermelon. I'm like, oh, god damn it. So I chopped the watermelon in two pieces. I give it to these two kids. And then as they start to eat this watermelon, I just looking at their eyes start like sparkling and this like smile in their face. I was like, wow, there would have been no chance I would enjoy this watermelon as much I am enjoying watching these two kids to eat that watermelon. There's so much more joy in giving. And I really wish for everyone to like really come from somewhere like with no exchange, with no expectation, and just give to those that they need.
That's a beautiful thing. And I saw that firsthand when I was with you in Rwanda, the kind of generosity your soul has. Power of Play obviously is a donation led organization. You're trying to raise money all the time so that you can get out there and build more playgrounds. We'll put the Instagram and website and stuff links onto the podcast for people to go and check you out. But if if you could ask one thing from the people that are listening today, just one thing of them all, what could they do to help you?
Mhm. First thing is we need to recognize that there is an issue, there's a problem, and play is missing in so many kids' life. And without play, they are not kids, and we need to do something about it. You know, and we can empower the kids so they can make our world a better place. Our generation and generation before, we shit the bed. We haven't done a good job. So let's empower this new generation to create a better world. And my request of your audience is to get the word out there. And the only thing is slowing is us down is funding. there's so many organizations, and I'm really happy for it that there's so many organizations taking care of water, food, school, shelter. Worldwide, there is about 12 of us that building playgrounds. And there is so much work for us to do, and what is slowing us down is the funding. And that's because a lot of people, they don't recognize this is as an issue. When we say playground, even my a lot of people in my own family, they still tell me like, why don't you go give them food? Why don't you just sit here and send money? We need to recognize there's an issue, and there's not many that they are doing anything about it.
If everybody, if everybody listening to this right now can go to your Instagram profile and share your Instagram profile with their own audience, then
That
that
would be
will
fantastic. Yeah.
okay. Well, then that's something I'm sure. If you're listening to this, watching this right now, then I'm sure that on the back of learning about Reza and his story and the power of play, it wouldn't be too much hard work for you to just quite simply share his um, Instagram profile through your audience and see if it gets any interest. If you feel like you want to make contributions or donations, obviously that's not for me to ask you, but if that's something you feel is important to you, then please make sure you support Raza in any way that you think you can. Now, Reza, lastly, before we go, if I had lots of people after I produced this content of me being in Rwanda say to me, I would love to come and do something like that. I would love to come and spend a week helping build a playground. In fact, I'd like to bring my teenage children. I think it would be great for them to see how other people live. Is that something that's possible?
Yes, absolutely. And we really want to create these experiences, for people, for organization, businesses. Uh, One is, just to be there and experience there. And I gotta later ask you to share an experience or what you got, like what was one of the best moment for you, is just to be there and serve the people. It's really humbling, rewarding, and fulfilling. And there's so much comes with it. When you come back, you don't take things for granted. And if you come with family, if you bring your teenage kid, if you come with your team, which you did, I think you really get connected with your team in a different level. It's not just another retreat. Let's go to Cancun and sit back in a beach. You guys are getting your hands dirty. You're doing something for the kids, and the joy you get from watching the joy in these little humans is just so gratifying. And now I just want to hear
Mm.
one of your good experiences or a special moment from that trip.
I have many special moments. Obviously, you come back and you realize that you don't have problems. That's one thing. Another thing, buying the footballs was very special for me to see them react to getting footballs and to be able to then at both of the playgrounds we were at to be able to play football with the kids was just fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Um, I I also I felt like I was connected to something much bigger than myself. And I remember while I was there, Sophia said, "Spencer, we're going to go trekking one day while you're here. Which day would you like to go trekking?" And I was like, "Trekking for what?" She's like, "Well, you love to go hiking, Spencer. It's your thing. So we've put a day aside while you're here to go hiking." And I'm like, I'm here to work. And that's how I felt from the moment I arrived. I'm here to work. I want to get this job done. I want to do it the best way possible. I'm rubbish with my hands. If my dad, he won't even let me in the garage to pick up spanners and screwdrivers. He's like, put it down, put it down. Um, but the fact that I was able to do stuff and contribute just filled me with joy. And obviously, those kids are fantastic that we spent time with, and you could steal easily 10% of them and take them with you if you can get them in the suitcase. But I just come away from it feeling like I'd spent valuable amount of time, and I went back to my business partner Danielle and I said, look, can you just cancel that Vegas trip, please, that you've got for your top performers in the company? Let's not do that. Let's take them to Rwanda or wherever Raza is and go and build a playground together, because it will give them so much more than just going to Las Vegas and to a show and to this and to that. And so that's what she and I have agreed to do. So it is compelling. And more importantly, it's life affirming and life changing at the same time. And I have nothing but an enormous amount of admiration and gratitude for you and what you do. And I'm also deeply inspired by your work. And I just long may it continue.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to have you there. And I remember we had all this planned for, all right, Spencer is coming, let's go to this lodge and we go to this hike. And I don't forget, like the first day you came in there and said, like, I am here to work. I want to get my hands dirty. And I remember you were digging like a madman, and Sarah and Claire they had like paint all over their head, and even Sarah's phone was like dipped in the paint, and they loved it. I don't know if you know or not, Sarah, your PA, she sent me video when she got back home. She built a little playground for her own kids in their backyard, and that was so beautiful to see. And thank you for
Yeah.
what you got with your business partner. Keep the good news to yourself. That's amazing. Thanks, Spencer.
Yeah, we'll get it organized and we'll come out. We want to help build a playground and just and just contribute. And I applaud all that you do. You definitely are a man on a mission, a man with purpose. Reza from Power of Play, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.
Well, there you have it. When a guy can tap into his own experience of playing whilst living in a war zone as a boy and then channel his energy in helping people feel good by building playgrounds in orphanages and in refugee camps. What kind of a guy, and what an incredible guy he is. If you've enjoyed this episode, then click here and see more episodes over there. If you click over there, though, you can subscribe to the channel. And if you subscribe, you'll get the content as soon as we make it, thick and fast, straight to your inbox. So go ahead, click over there, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next episode.